review time. I got an oldie but a goodie. Years ago, I asked a colleague of mine I respect a great deal, who's in nutrition science. I said, man, give me a book that, this is, in wading through the minutia of nutrition science, which is quite a bit of it, give me a book that does a good job of summarizing good practice, right? That tries to stay out of the weeds on certain issues, that just the nuts and bolts. That's not a textbook about nutrition. And he recommended the book What to Eat by Nestle, not the country. If you've seen any of the documentaries, which again, I would like Food Inc., right? Exercise some discernment in those videos. A lot of people just watch those things and turn their brains off. Like that goes for what was the one, the vegan one a couple of years ago about sports performers? I can't remember the name of it. Game Changers. What to Eat, Knives and Forks. No, Forks Over Knives, something like that. I've seen these. I don't remember. All these videos, there's some nuggets of truth in them, but I would just, like in anything, read with a wary eye. So I say that because Dr. Nestle's was in Food Inc. But I think she has a balanced approach to food. I would say a reasonable approach to things. And this is an old book, but I highly recommend it. If you're like, man, just give me what's a good book to look, just like I asked my colleague, what's a good book to read on nutrition? That's just basic book, easy to read. It'll cover some of the controversial things, whether that's food additives or whatever, but, eating fat, eating carbs, eating protein, what are the recommended amounts, what are the reasonable boundaries. She does a good job of not getting into the weeds in this book, in my opinion. Of course, it's the problem with any research in something so big in scope like nutrition, because it has so many inputs. There's so many variables in play when you try to analyze nutrition. Even assessing how right? A lot of people don't realize, I think we're realizing it now in the era of COVID and things like that, is how you measure things is really important. You're only as good as your measurement tools. And so if you're in a simplistic sense, if your scale is broken and not only is it giving you the wrong weight, but it changes, the reliability is poor, and so the weight is changing from day to day and you don't know why, it's just random, that's hard to determine if you're making progress. Now, if you had other other ways of evaluating progress, that would be helpful. But that's where nutrition just alone and trying to measure, like a lot of food recalls, is a very common way to assess progress in food in the literature. If you've ever done a food recall yourself, you know that there's a lot of room for error, and people subconsciously or purposely underreport or overreport things to tell the researchers what they want to hear. I mean, there's so many issues. Having been in research, I've been in academia and read research, and had a research component to my dissertation and things like that. It's very difficult. That's what I'm getting at. And so getting a text that is as balanced and as neutral as possible, keeping in mind that Dr. Nestle has a viewpoint as well that is going to be biased. But I think she has done the best I have seen at being as neutral, if there's such a thing, and I don't think there is, but being as neutral, and maybe that's not use the word neutral, being as aligned with the evidence that we have from the research literature as possible. How's that? So this is a short book review. Just because it's a nutrition book, you can imagine the sections are in there. So that's why I'm not going over every single section. But she deals with macronutrients, micronutrients, how food safety, food additives, a lot of the controversies. I remember one of the biggest things I got out of the book was how bad fish was. I knew it was. I'm talking about contaminating the contaminants, right? Not fish is actually wonderful, but a nugget like this is something I had carried in, and I was just not very smart. I still not, but I was even less smart then. You would think wild caught fish is better. So like if I go down to my local lake and fish and get a fish out of there, I think, oh, this is healthier than the food that I get at the store, because the food at the store has been farmed, and that's all kinds of bad stuff. Well, it's a fish, so fish is the top of the food chain. A large predatory fish is the top of the food chain. So anything that's below it, right, it's all concentrated in that fish. That's why mercury is such a big deal, right? And so whatever's been in that lake, the water supply, the situation with the rainfall, all those things are going to be as part of that fish now. You ate your environment. right? Which is what food is anyway. You ate your environment, and the fish is a highly concentrated sample of that environment. So being mindful not to overconsume fish for that purpose is a good idea. I love fish. I love salmon. My wife has like 50 different ways to dress salmon. She's the cook in the family, and she's fantastic. But I mean, I love salmon, but I have to keep that in mind, not just the mercury poisoning, but things like PCBs and other contaminants. Even evaluating those things, I think she does a good job, though, of saying, well, how much is too much, right? When are we getting into the weeds a little bit when it comes to some of these things? I'm not going to, everybody has a view, well, everybody does have a view, whether they realize it or not, on like GMOs and hormones and organics and all these different things in food. I think she does a good job of saying, and even to be honest with you, the book is old, but not much has changed when it comes to some of the fundamentals. It just shows you, what it tells me is that a lot of the book, the fundamentals are the same, but our emotions and our thoughts about many of these ideas have changed. And they may not, what I'm getting is they may not have changed based on the research literature. They may have changed on marketing and feelings and maybe true linkages between health and some of these things. But it's hard to, again, this nutrition science, you got a lot of truth mixed in with a lot of error, and it's hard to tease out which one's which. So I'm not trying to go down that road with this book review. I'm just trying to say, if you're looking for an easy read, a good book on nutrition, I think as fair as possible, as fair as you can be, as neutral is, and there's no really such thing as neutrality anyway. This is as good this is as close as you're gonna get. Highly recommend it. What to Eat by Nestle. You can get it super cheap because it's super old. And hope, if you've read it, leave me a comment below. Like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. This is a growing list of book reviews, journal club reviews, topics. I'm doing at the moment I'm recording this, I'm working on a desk worker series, and I'm more interested in performance, to be honest with you, but I'm also a person who works at a desk a lot. So I thought, I'll do a little series on how maybe to, what you can do as a desk and remote worker, especially in this era when the remote working is increasing. What are some things you can do to help guard your health that, some of them are obvious and maybe some of them not so much. All right. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. And again, thank you for getting this channel over the hump for 100 subs. But if you haven't already, I'd like to ultimately get to 1,000. And share any video that you find interesting in this growing library. And we'll keep building our little community here. If you have any questions, put them in the comments and I'll address them. I do read them. I'm happy to get back to you.